talked about when the rules changed. Like, what is this? What are these Jace mirrors going to look like now that you can't vindicate with your own Jace? Both at 3 loyalty.
These players both doing quite well in this event.
Okay, so Reid Duke with Bant, Chris Funk with blue-white Stoneblade. He's got the Funk, and he's got a Supreme Verdict on the stack here.
Supreme Verdict gonna take out that Knight of Reliquary. Very few ways to stop that from happening. Mind Break Trap, what else? I don't know, not much. We see a fetch from the Misty Rainforest.
Time stop, Adrian Sullivan.
Time stop, Mind Break Trap, are we done?
I think we're done.
Wait, Venser?
I mean, yeah, turns it to his hand, stops it for a turn.
Here we go. That's a funky Ice Age island. Is that a fake snow-covered island? When I say, yep, that's a fake snow-covered island, what I mean is it looks like it's got snow on it, but it doesn't have the words snow-covered on it.
It is a regular island from Ice Age that is not snow-covered, meaning the name and type. Okay, Ice Age Brainstorm for Reid Duke. So we got a little bit of an Ice Age thing going on here. I believe the Plains is also from Ice Age.
One of the things I'm loving watching here with Reid Duke playing briskly. He's got a lot of library manipulation going on. He's got the difficult decisions of a Sylvan library to handle, but you know what he's not doing? He's not taking a ton of time. He's making his decisions in a crisp fashion. I mean, this right now, if the, at the top of the screen, if it is actually the first game still, which it could well be, they've got 30 minutes or so into this match, and they still haven't finished.
They were deck checks, so they should have a time extension as well.
Oh, that's a good point. They
were
deck checked.
We will get up-to-date information on that in just a moment. Meanwhile, Green Sun Zenith. So for 3? Oh, he brainstormed, so for 2 looks like.
No, the brainstorm was end of turn, wasn't it? So Green Sun's for 3 Reliquary. There it is.
Sure, yeah.
Green Sun's for 3 Reliquary.
It's a powerful creature. Okay, Chris is going to take a look and count the lands in Reid's graveyard for us. While Reid shuffles. Big.
If it's not lethal, it's close.
Did you know that Green Sun Zenith technically shuffles your library twice? Because you shuffle once after you search for the creature, and then you, as part of the spell's resolution, you shuffle it back into your library, as you do all the Zeniths. So this is actually relevant for things like Psychogenic Probe.
That
deals
is really
damage
funny.
Twice.
You've got a little grin when you say that.
Yeah, I love silly things like that that don't matter.
I just picture you building a commander deck with all of that stuff in there just in case.
All of them, by which you mean Psychogenic Probe and Kosi's Trickster. That's all of them.
I mean all those kinds of rare interactions. Another Green Sun Zenith, this time for 2, gets Gaddock Teague. Ouch. Gaddock Teague shuts down a ton of possible cards from Chris Funk.
Yeah, the Supreme Verdict we just saw.
Yeah.
So no more Verdict. Nothing that costs 4 or greater, or no X spells, non-creature spells 4 or greater. Gaddock Teague, the old Grizzly Kithkin Advisor. Advisor is a strange creature type that's really crept into Magic. I think Ulfzadad is an advisor.
I remember when I played D&D, I had a elf advisor as my one of my characters.
Your characters?
Oh, for D&D.
Oh, good old D&D player Adrian Sullivan.
A long time ago. We see a bounce effect on the Gaddock Teague.
Sure, that can happen. So clears the way for a spell.
Here is a expensive and or X spell. I think he might want another white source if he's going for a Verdict.
Yeah, well, I think that's a Plains. It's an island.
There we go. Close enough.
he's got enough. But Reid also catches that and says, pay another white.
Draw, activate Sylvan, draw 2 more. Reid can only Necro Hut 1 more time. Costs 4 life to get an extra card from Sylvan Library.
You just said Necro Hut, and all I can think of now is like Sunglasses Hut. My brain goes to strange places. So you mean drawing the extra card off of Sylvan. You can pay 4 life.
Yep, Necro Hut. And we see a Stoneforge Mystic Gets
Ooh.
Batterskull.
Well, that's going to buy him a lot more sunglasses. So he still also has that Gadok Teeg in his hand, which was bounced by Chris's Jace the Mind Sculptor, -1 ability. Jace the Mind Sculptor still the only planeswalker in history with 4 abilities.
You know, you could tell they really wanted that one to be good.
Yeah.
They did all right, and they made it a good one.
Pushed it a little bit.
And look, yeah, I mean, every format that Jace the Mind Sculptor has been legal in, Jace the Mind Sculptor has been just a monstrously powerful card.
Banned in Standard, banned in Modern. Discussion about banning it in Legacy at one point, I believe.
And the Wasteland gets rid of the Scrubland, the only black source that Chris Funk is showing.
Yeah, does he have any other? Check on the black sources.
There is one Underground Sea in his deck. Given the size of his graveyard, it's possible it's in his graveyard, but I cannot tell right now.
And what does he need that black mana for?
Lingering Souls.
Oh, of course.
Someone summon Tom Martell.
Summon Tom Martell. Summon Shaheen Surani as well.
There's a Batterskull cast from the hand after the Gadok Teeg is bounced. Now, with Reid Duke's Jace, of course, Reid Duke can also play the bounce game. He could bounce that token and then march on in to murder the Jace. And
yeah, that's probably going to be the line here. And Chris only has 2 mana open, so he cannot even return his Batterskull this turn. It's going to cost him a lot of time to get that Batterskull back down with a Germ.
Goodbye, Germ. Rar away. But you know what? This Stoneforge Mystic is killing Jace.
Happened just as you said it would. All right, so Reid Duke has a Batterskull in his hand that we know about, that Chris Funk knows about, and a Gadok Teeg in his hand that is known about. So going to play it again, and no more Jace the Mind Sculptor. In fact, Chris cannot cast a Jace the Mind Sculptor, so he's going to have to force of will Gadok Teeg to ensure that he can play his future Planeswalker.
Force of will. Chris Funk now empty-handed, Batterskull in hand versus a Jace, a Stoneforge Mystic, a Sylvan Library, and Reid Duke has another Stoneforge Mystic in his hand. There's a fetch here for Reid Duke. Reid drops to 4 life.
So, seemingly Reid Duke, the Grand Prix Miami champion, very close to winning this game. I mean, perhaps not close in terms of turns and time, but certainly an advantage.
Reid hard casts the Batterskull. Gets a Germ there.
So he's trying to shorten that clock. He could have waited to untap with a Stoneforge Mystic, activate, etc., but he has 5 mana. He says, I'm just going to jam this Batterskull out. You're hell-bent. Just going to get a 4 power onto the board and try to kill you in 2 turns.
We see Chris Funk draw land, Flusterstorm, I believe.
Ouch, off of that Brainstorm. So
draw, and then activate the Sylvan. Chooses which one to keep. Looks like he found a Green Sun Zenith with the Sylvan Library.
And the Gadok Teeg was Force of Willed, so he is free to Green Suns here, the X spell. That's often a mistake you see people make with Gadok Teeg. They actually try to cast a Green Sun's Zenith themselves because they're just not used to having Gadok Teeg in play, for one thing, because it's a singleton or a sideboard card. And the Zenith is often cast for so cheap that you don't think of it as an expensive spell or an X spell. Fate Seal. Reid wants to make sure that this game ends, leaves it on top, so it's a potential blank. I believe you said it was a land. Yeah, so
Chris
that's it.
Funk done. And the thing that happened here for Chris Funk, after he lost advantage on the Jace, the other Jace bounces the creature that Chris had, and so then that was the Germ token. Reid Duke able to finish off Chris Funk. His Jace dead. Now it's only Reid Duke with a Jace, and one of the things that happens in these slower matchups, if you've got a Jace and your opponent doesn't, it is practically impossible to come back from that. Unless you've got a Notion Thief.
Yeah. Very strange. I mean, we've been playing and watching Legacy for so long now with these new Planeswalker and Legend rules, seeing two Jaces facing off, and the players trying to figure out how to play around their opponent's Jace while protecting their own. A new element, new life infused into Legacy without printing a single card.
So I have a question for you that involves the rules, Ricky.
Oh boy, put me on the spot.
Okay, so pretend that there's a Sylvan Library in play.
Okay.
And Sylvan Library, the effect of the Sylvan Library is drawing cards.
I hate this question. Yeah, go
and
ahead.
then you have to put 2 cards back.
Yeah.
If you get Notion Thiefed, do you have to put the 2 cards back?
You're gonna make me look at Sylvan Library, and we could put it on the screen, but that's not gonna help me because the Oracle text, because the printed text for any Sylvan Library is just gonna be terribly out of date.
Now, while you look that up, I also have a question about Raging River.
Oh, be quiet. You can see that we've updated the time on the clock, added a few minutes. They did get a time extension for the deck check. Adrian, why don't you tell them a little bit about the sideboards while I look this card up?
No problem at all. Chris Funk here, who's down a game, is going to have the option to play or draw, has Pithing Needle, double Notion Thief, double Detention Sphere, double Rest in Peace, double Blue Elemental Blast, 1 Celestial Purge, 1 Flusterstorm, and 4 Thoughtseize. In a slow matchup like this, Thoughtseize is going to be a valuable weapon, but he does only have 2 black sources in his deck, and his opponent is very good at getting Wastelands because they are a Knight of the Reliquary deck. But Notion Thief, great in a Jace fight, and let's see. Thoughtseize is still a very solid card and reasonable to bring in here.
Yeah, I agree. So here we go, Sylvan Library. Earlier you said activate the Sylvan Library because there was a printing of Sylvan Library that had it as an activated ability with 0 cost.
It's changed
Yeah.
wording so many times, it's hard to
It
actually
has.
keep up.
It is now a triggered ability that says at the beginning of your draw step, you may draw 2 additional cards. If you do, choose 2 cards in your hand drawn this turn. For each of those cards, pay 4 life or put the card on top of your library. So, first off, it's a trigger and it's a may. So if your opponent has a Notion Thief, you should probably just say no. That's what I'm going with.
And
Just
we
gonna
have
dodge your question.
a double fetch here from Chris Funk. Doing a little shortcutting here in order just to save some time. Gets permission from Reid Duke to do so. We see an island and a plains. His opponent, Reid Duke, only a fetch land of his own in play, doesn't have anything else. We see Rest in Peace. Rest in Peace, a very powerful card against the Knight of the Reliquary, effectively making it into a small creature, only its normal size of 2/2.
Yeah, and I wonder, does Reid have any Tarmogoyfs in his deck? No. But
He does have a Scavenging Ooze, so that's made weaker.
okay, but Bant is a deck that has not really seen a lot of success lately or a lot of play at these Legacy Opens, so Chris may also think that Reid has Tarmogoyfs and just we didn't see any.
Now Chris Funk, Force of Wills aggressively that Sylvan Library. I think this is a very good call. And unfortunately for Chris Funk, his Lingering Souls is also affected by his Rest in Peace. So it's merely a 2/1, a pair of 1/1 flyers. And Knight of the Reliquary, a 2/2.
Chris Funk, Force of Willing that Sylvan Library as a nod to me so I don't have to think about these things that you're asking me, Adrian Sullivan. Thank you, Chris.
Umezawa's Jite adds itself to Chris Funk's side of the board.
It's very powerful here with those, even only 2 1/1 Spirit tokens. Suit that up and then kill the Knight of the Reliquary,
Well,
which is only ever going to be a 2/2, but Reid's still able to use the activated ability to sacrifice and go search for lands.
I also have a question about the card Camouflage, Ricky.
I've never heard of such a card.
Brainstorm from Reid Duke. Trying to get something good going here. Looks like he's putting a Dryad Arbor back into the top of the library.
I think he's going to want to get a Maze of this with the Knight of the Reliquary to shut off the Umezawa's Jite.
Unfortunately for Reid, no such Maze of Ith exists in
really?
his sideboard or main deck.
That's surprising. I suppose that's more of a Maverick card than Bant, but with Knight of the Reliquary's tutoring power, Maze of Ith can be such a randomly powerful card that can shut down various strategies. So I'm a little surprised by that. So instead, he fetched up a forest, then sacrificed the forest to get his Horizon Canopy, the cycling land, and then he Green Suns.
Kasali Pride Mage is a solid answer to Umezawa's Jite.
That works as well. I accept.
Chris Funk does not have a Stifle or any other similar effect, so the Kasali Pride Mage will be able to do its job of destroying an artifact or enchantment.
And Jace the Mind Sculptor on the field for Chris Funk. That's pretty good. That's a good reason not to suit up your spirit with Jite.
And we see Jace the Mind Sculptor activated for the 0 ability, the Pseudo Brainstorm. What a hand. Swords and swords left in his own hand. Detention Sphere on top of the library. He passes the turn back. Reid Duke, draw. We can see Kasali Pride Mage and the Knight of the Reliquary facing off against Jace the Mind Sculptor, Umezawa's Jite, and a pair of spirits from Lingering Souls.
Now gotta find a way to deal with that Jace the Mind Sculptor. His Knight of the Reliquary only a 2/2, but Kasali Pride Mage has Exalted, so can attack as a 3/3 here. So if you attack Jace, at least a spirit would have to chump block, and now Jite's on both sides.
Oh, wow.
Again,
this
legendary
is what's going to
rule.
be happening here. He's going to be fetching a land out, and then he's going to use his Knight of the Reliquary to get another land out, have 2 mana to activate the Umezawa's Jite, equipping it to perhaps his Kasali Pride Mage, and then have counters on the Umezawa's Jite, as well as have a Pride Mage that can't be killed this turn by the spirits because of the Exalted from the Pride Mage. There it is. Attack for 2 plus 1 with the Exalted is 3.
This is the power of Knight of the Reliquary. Even when it has no power bonus from lands in the graveyard, you tap it, sacrifice a forest or plains, and then search your library for any land and put it on the battlefield. So essentially you can generate mana at the cost of sacrificing lands. You can tap the land for mana, sacrifice it, and then get another land.
And now Chris Funk, he was, I feel like, in a very good spot when he had that Umezawa's Jite and the Jace as his weapons here. But now he's not going to be able to connect with his own Jite. Reid Duke is not going to forget to kill that spirit.
Well, you say that.
Well, I've seen Reid Duke play a few times, and he just doesn't generally forget that kind of thing.
Well,
and Reid's like, okay, yeah, the Pride Mage is removed. I'll gain 2 life. That's a shame.
Not the worst there for Chris Funk, but yeah, as you said, Reid remembers to use the -1/-1 ability from Umezawa's Jite. 3 abilities on this card. That was a bit much too. 4 abilities on Jace, 3 on Jite. Turns out you add more abilities, cards are powerful.
And you see Chris Funk clears the table out, bounces the Stoneforge Mystic, and Swords to Plowshares on the Knight of the Reliquary. I might have gone the other direction myself.
Yeah, how
Bounce
much?
the Knight of the Reliquary and Swords the Stoneforge Mystic.
I agree, because now replaying the Stoneforge Mystic, Reid is going to be able to get his Batterskull as well. But that's how much respect Chris Funk is showing for the Knight of the Reliquary, how much it's already done. But yeah, at this point, Reid may be short on lands to sacrifice and search for.
And it looks like Reid Duke has found a land with his Jace. He activates the 0 ability. So now it's Jace and Jite dueling off, facing each other. But here's the thing. Reid Duke has more land. Reid Duke has a counter on his Jite. He takes 1 damage. There's the Stoneforge Mystic. If that had been a Knight of the Reliquary in his hand, he wouldn't have that sword that he has fetched up. That's a Sword of Fire and Ice. That's an awesome one. And even more importantly, he wouldn't have been able to cast both spells. He wouldn't have been able to cast Stoneforge Mystic, or pardon me, Knight of the Reliquary and Jace this turn. So Chris Funk here opening the door for Reid Duke to take over.
Sword of Fire and Ice. Is this a sideboard equipment?
This is a sideboard card, 1 in the sideboard.
Wow, very surprising. All of these swords are +2/+2 protection from 2 different colors, and then 2 abilities that are related to those colors, and the name Fire and Ice, so blue and red.
And sort of Fire and Ice, when it was first printed, one of those cards that people first saw as this amazing, exciting idea for a cycle. And we've been going through that cycle ever since, getting all of the different combinations, Sword of Feast and Famine, we've got Sword of Light and Shadow. You can go through all of these color combinations, and they're all exciting swords. Sword of War and Peace, really, really cool equipment, great cycle from Wizards.
Adrian, we haven't gone through all of them yet. The current
Oh.
5 swords are all of the enemy color swords. Someday we may get the ally color swords.
A flurry of combat there with some blocks and some GT counters used. At the end of the day, what we have is Umezawa's GT with 1 counter on Reid Duke's side of the table, Jace with 3 loyalty versus a 2 loyalty Jace from Chris Funk. And one of the things I would be not at all surprised to see from Reid Duke, since he already has a slight advantage here, it would be pretty reasonable to expect to see the Jace the Mind Sculptor here push the advantage such that Reid Duke goes over the top in the next few turns. Look at that double Stoneforge Mystic this turn.
So what happened here was that Chris Funk cast the Detention Sphere,
Yep.
took the Stoneforge Mystic, but Reid Duke with more Stoneforge Mystics.
They both lose their Stoneforge Mystics from that Detention Sphere.
And also using the Brainstorm ability to put equipment back on top of his library, then search for them with Stoneforge Mystic. So generating card advantage there with his Jace Stoneforge combination. This is the core of Caw-Blade, Adrian Sullivan, a deck that was banned in Standard.
We see now a supreme verdict from Chris Funk. Clears the table. Reid Duke has his Jace. There's I believe a Dryad Arbor he's drawn, and now he's Jacing to put some cards back. So yeah, that earlier exchange was because Detention Sphere took out the first 2 Stoneforge Mystics, one of Chris's, one of Reid's. Chris did not want to see the Umezawa's GT get beyond 1 counter from Reid Duke.
Yeah, and the Stoneforges, 2 of them in a separate pile. Everything is exiled. There are no graveyards because of Rest in Peace, but keeping the cards exiled by Detention Sphere separate, just in case it is destroyed.
1, 2, 3 mana from Reid Duke. Green Suns for 2.
Does he have another Pride Mage in his deck?
Just 1 Pride Mage. There's a Gaddock Teague. Would have been exciting to have that before. We see Reid Duke start using the Wastelands. This is going to push that advantage on mana. Instead of it being 7 mana to 6 mana, it's now 5 mana to 4 mana.
Tell me a little bit more about that. Why, at this point, does he want to Wasteland?
Well, one of the things, once you're ahead in this kind of race, Jace gets more and more powerful the more that you can do with the cards that you find. But the less land you have, the less you can do on any particular turn.
Right.
He's just trying to choke out this game so that Chris can't do as much in any single turn.
Sure, and I guess Reid, despite the fact that he did have a use for the mana, he could have equipped his creature with GT, but he can just do that next turn. So he feels it's better to use both of his Wastelands. Don't want to hedge right there and just use one and then equip GT with the other Wasteland.
Yeah.
Use them both to keep Chris off of powerful things like Batterskull. So yeah, very good.
Now we're going to see the bounce of the Gaddock Teague from Chris Funk.
Okay.
Swords, the other creature. He's doing very good at keeping Reid Duke off of any creatures. Reid Duke, though, has a Swords to Plowshares of his own.
Yeah.
And Chris Funk does not have a land there. And we see a Brainstorm again from Reid Duke.
So I just want to mention, Adrian, everyone on Twitter is now going wild about Sylvan Library Notion Thief interactions. I'm getting a lot of it at me, and some of it is on the hashtag SCGINVI, INVI. I feel like now I have to go and write an article or a blog post about Sylvan Library and Notion Thief.
Maybe you should. I see that Griffin Bodell has a question for you as well. He wanted to ask you about humility.
Trollolololol. All right, Reid replays the Gaddock Teague. And does so using... Now, did Reid have Caracas tapped last turn? I cannot recall. I believe he may have had Caracas tapped.
There we see the Noble Hierarch, a Gaddock Teague, and a Meddling Mage. There's Chris Pikula, Meddling Mage himself. I love that Reid Duke is using the actual, factual, real Meddling Mage, or as I like to call it, Pikula.
So Meddling Mage is naming Supreme Verdict, one of the cards that, cannot be countered, Wrath of God. Can't play it right now with Gaddock Teague, but with Jason play, Chris would have the ability to bounce Gaddock Teague. Yeah. Now he has to deal with Meddling Mage and Teague if he wants to cast Verdict. And at that point, you're only verdicting a Noble Hierarch, so what's the point?
If you check out the Meddling Mage over there to the left, that's the original art, or as I like to say, the right art for the Meddling Mage. And right now, Chris Funk, he is being buried in so many different ways. He's been having to use his Jace to bounce creatures, which has just been letting Reid Duke pull further and further ahead.
That's it.
That is it. Reid Duke wins 2-0. He kind of got an advantage against Chris Funk and then leaned.
Both players with